Well, kia ora, good afternoon everyone. As we've talked about before, the world is currently facing the greatest disruption to fuel supply, I think, in a generation. New Zealand is in a good position with healthy stocks of fuel in the country and more on the way, and the market is operating as normal. But of course, we are actively planning for a scenario where obtaining future supply becomes more difficult. Hundreds of thousands of Kiwi jobs and incomes rely on fuel. Our entire economy relies on fuel. A shortage of fuel supply could affect thousands of livelihoods, so that is why we are continuing to ensure that we have sufficient supply, and that must be our first priority. At the same time, we are conscious that the increasing price at the pump is eating into household budgets. New Zealanders are very resilient people, but it's probably an understatement to say that the last few years have been incredibly tough for everyone. Kiwis have been knocked around by the pandemic, then high inflation and the recession, then the tariffs, and now the Middle East conflict. It's taken our government the better part of 2 years to take the economy out of recession and to get it growing again. The economic recovery was just starting to gain momentum when the conflict in the Middle East began. Higher fuel prices are a direct result of the conflict in the Middle East, which New Zealand has no part of or control of. But because of those higher prices, many Kiwis are making sacrifices and changes to their household budgets in order to get through this period. Some people are choosing to take public transport instead of driving their car. Others are having to put off other purchases in order to prioritise getting petrol in the car so that they can get their kids to school. Good government means looking after your people, and that means two things. One is recognising when government support is required to help people when times are tough. And two is ensuring that we protect New Zealand's economic future so that our kids and our grandkids have higher incomes and better job opportunities and don't have to pay for mountains and mountains of government debt. So we're very conscious of bending the debt curve down and making spending decisions that are affordable for taxpayers now and also into the long term. It is a hard reality that we cannot alleviate the pressure of rising fuel costs for everyone. And as we've learned from the COVID response, seeking to do so would do more damage to our economy, which has just started growing again. With this policy that Nicola will announce shortly, we believe we've struck the right balance of supporting those most in need at a very difficult time and ensuring we also don't drive up inflation and higher levels of debt. I'll now let Nicola talk through the support package.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Today, the Government is announcing support for the Kiwi families most affected by the conflict in the Middle East. The Government is acutely aware that the conflict is affecting virtually all Kiwi people and businesses. Put simply, Operation Epic Fury and its resulting fallout is hurting all Kiwis. The longer traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is disrupted, the greater that impact will be on the price of other goods. Diesel is a key cost for most producers of goods and services in our economy. However, the Government is also conscious that an untargeted response to the conflict could have long-lasting and painful consequences for the New Zealand economy. We saw this in the aftermath of COVID. Excessive spending more than doubled debt and sent inflation soaring and mortgage rates skyrocketing. Kiwis are still grappling with the effects of that today. Those most affected by the global shockwaves hitting the New Zealand economy are lower to middle income families who cannot avoid higher fuel costs. These are people who provide critical services to other Kiwis and help drive our economy. Some have no choice but to drive to work because they are doing so at times or in places where public transport is unavailable. Others have no choice but to drive their kids to school. Therefore, I am announcing that from next month, 143,000 low to middle income working families with children will get an extra $50 a week in their bank accounts. The money will be delivered through a boost to the in-work tax credit. That goes to low to middle income working families with children. The boost will also expand eligibility for this payment to about 14,000 additional working families who will receive the tax credit at an abated rate, that is, at less than $50. The increase will be temporary, lasting for 1 year, or until the price of 91 octane petrol drops below $3 a litre for 4 consecutive weeks, whichever comes first. This initiative will deliver support to working families who are under significant financial pressure without making inflation worse or further driving up government debt. The policy is carefully targeted to families in the squeezed middle. Parents who are working hard for a living are not eligible for main benefits and yet have modest household incomes with which to support their children. We know these families will be hit particularly hard by the global fuel price shock. An amendment to the taxation bill currently before Parliament will be introduced tomorrow, so that the changes can be enacted from the 1st of April. Most eligible households will not need to do anything to receive the increase. It will simply be paid directly into their bank accounts. For households that are paid weekly, payments will start on the 7th of April. For households that are paid fortnightly, payments will start on the 14th of April. Families who think they may be eligible but are not currently receiving the in-work tax credit should check their eligibility and apply to Inland Revenue online. The policy will cost up to $373 million. Importantly, this cost will be met from within the Budget 2026 operating allowance, which we have previously committed will not exceed $2.4 billion. That means the government will not be borrowing any more than was previously planned to deliver this temporary and targeted support. Funding the policy this way will not add to forecast debt and will not add to inflationary pressure. It is consistent with the government's fiscal strategy, which seeks to balance the books and bend the debt curve down. We cannot control global oil markets or international conflicts, but we can soften the impact on working families who cannot easily avoid higher fuel costs by delivering support in a responsible and well-targeted way. The government knows there are many other families who would also welcome support to deal with rising prices. Unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, our ability to provide additional support is limited by the big increase in debt that occurred in the aftermath of COVID. We are close as a country to the upper level of debt that Treasury considers prudent. However, the government is closely monitoring developments, and we will continue to respond with care and judgment. We are giving consideration to other measures that may be needed in response to the fuel crisis. Any other measures will be consistent with our goals of keeping pressure off inflation and debt under control. In the meantime, I want to assure people of 4 key things. 1, the government is working very closely with the fuel industry to prepare for the possibility of disruptions to fuel supply and to minimise the potential impact on the businesses that employ people, create jobs, and move goods around our economy. 2, there has been no disruption to the delivery of frontline public services, and the government remains committed to ensuring these continue. 3, the government will not take reckless decisions that harm the economy. We will protect New Zealand's future. And finally, the steps we are announcing today will provide meaningful assistance to some of those most. These are, if it's not you getting the support today, just know it might be your friend, it might be your family member, it might be the person serving you at the cafe today. Working families who cannot easily avoid higher fuel costs. Thank you, and I'm happy to take your questions.